Okay. Okay, so very interesting discussion tonight. I'm going to be talking about Trump versus Obama's deportation style. And I also want to talk about a lot of the riots happening and a lot of the commentary from local Florida police. And I want to read a lot of the comments that I have gotten from both a lot of my liberal and conservative friends and followers. So I've honestly heard a lot of interesting perspectives on both sides. I'm going to read each comment. I am not going to be misrepresenting either side. I'm going to read your comments fairly, and I'm going to talk about what I think about them. And you guys are also welcome to chime in on the live comments, and we can go through those too. I actually have a lot of comments, so hold on one second. I'm going to get to those. Let's see how loud I can make this. Testing, testing. Turn it up too high and get feedback. How's that sound? Hopefully good. All right, so, wow. So the other day, as many of you have seen on my Facebook, I posted up an article talking about how Obama has deported more people than Trump so far. Now, this is an older post, but I mean, the fact remains that Barack Obama was also very serious and devout in deporting people. And I think a lot of the complaints here from the liberal side are that Trump is doing it in a meaner way. So I'm going to read some of these comments. You guys can tell me what you think. And like I said, I mean, just, very interesting perspectives. There we go. I think I got my mic fixed now. Okay, so, and the article here, I'm going to show it to you guys real quick just so you can see it. Because it started a real firestorm. So yes, I don't know if you guys can see that. Honestly, need a camera that moves, but deportations lower under Trump administration than Obama report. And here's what I said about it. I said, hey friends, I'm really having a hard time with some of you. Why are you so mad at President Trump deporting illegal immigrants when none of you seem to bat an eye to President Obama being very adamant about deportation as well? In fact, Obama deported even more immigrants than Trump so far. He also couldn't have cared less about how angry the public was about it. Don't believe me, just watch his interviews about it. And I said, update, since this is a very passionate subject, I'll be talking about it on my YouTube-based show, TAMPA'S, which is happening right here and right now. This is another video that I want to get to after I go through some of the comments, because some people love this and some people hate it. And I'm going to be going over that too. So I'm going to turn off this most relevant crap and I'm going to go to all comments because that is the way to read comments. So, there you have it. Okay, so, hold on one second, let me move this over. Finally found my nice mic stand. I love that. This is actually what I use to record music, but it also serves this purpose. So, yeah. Okay, so, my mom said, Brenda Ayala, she said, thank you, the hypocrisy is laughable. We don't need immigration reform. We just need to follow the laws that are already on the books. And if you're an illegal and you want to stay, you got to do it the right way. Please show me any other country that lets anybody walk across their borders like we have and then not be allowed to deport them. Not one. And it got a lot of likes, actually. Not much criticism there. So, Abe Ward said, and I'm assuming he's liberal based on, the commentary here. He says, let me just try to get this, you know what, I'm just going to take this. Actually, yeah, hold on one second. I'm going to hold, this is easier to hold right here while I'm reading the comments. All right, how's that sound? So Abe Ward said the difference was the Obama I'm assuming the administration focused on criminal illegals and so-called expedited removals, which happen right at the border. And the guy had enough of a brain to know that messaging is important. I agree, only action should matter, but when you're the president, you have to at least act like you have some common sense and empathy. Trump's entire tone is aggressive and mean, and even though he also made it sound like he would focus on criminals, he's just rounding up hardworking people and going into places that used to be safe and rounding people up. It's just a lot more harsh and aggressive and heartless. Is he actually focused on criminals and the actual border? Then it's more out of sight, out of mind. But when you go into schools, churches, courthouses, and workplaces and round up tens, I'm imagining he meant tens of thousands of hardworking people. It just strikes a totally different chord. Okay. That's interesting perspective. So my friend Calm on here, he says, I remember under Obama, they were pulling kids out of schools and deporting them as well as working illegals. And Abe says that's completely anecdotal, which I kind of disagree with that. I mean, I kind of feel like they were both pretty hot on, deportation. Now, I will say, President Obama's approach probably had a little bit more tact. Trump says, tends to say things very point blank. Now, I can relate to that being an ESTP. Supposedly, he's an ESTP MBTI type, and we are very, very big on being very point blank if we don't like something. And I think, sometimes I think we could even mean well more than other people who could be a little more silver-tongued and a little bit more careful with their speech. I feel like some of our politicians that we have will say things in a very politically correct way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their intentions are pure. They tend to be the most corrupt. They tend to be the most deceitful. Whereas I think that people that kind of keep it point blank, even though, you don't like their delivery, to me, they tend to be some of the better-hearted people, more honest both with themselves and honest both with people. Yeah, you can take that with a grain of salt. I mean, that's my personal opinion on that one. I'm going to keep going with the comments, though. And I don't know if any of you guys have commented on the live feed yet. But like I said, you are more than welcome to. So, he says, so back to the comments, Abe says that's completely anecdotal. And I'm sure it probably did happen here and there. But there's a difference between it happening occasionally and making it a daily and deliberate part of your messaging and enforcement. If a bad thing happens 10 or 20 times, that's not good. But if the same thing happens thousands of times and is the whole intention, that's a lot worse. So, my friend Kong says it happened occasionally under Obama. LOL, regardless of anyone in this country is legal, then they should be deported. So, Keith Darnell on my page, he says, I was listening to a guy who mentioned he visited over 50 countries but got banned from Thailand for a year for overstaying by just a few hours. I keep telling people who defend illegal immigration, you're living in a bubble. The U.S. isn't some immigrant paradise. Every country has immigration laws, and they have a right to enforce them. So then Alicia Thompson, she responded and said, the USA history is very different than most countries, especially on border states that used to be Mexico, so there's no point comparing. And so Cecil Smith, who I've had some very interesting political discussions with, he is on the liberal side of things, and we've had some very interesting debates. And while we may not completely see eye to eye, I think that, we're able to, talk to each other in a civil way more often than not. We have had some heated discussions too, don't get me wrong. Because there's a lot of passion on both sides. There's a lot of passion, and I want to explain both perspectives, and after this, I'm going to tell you what I think, if there isn't any comments. I'm going to tell you how I feel about immigration and deportation, and also about, President Obama and President Trump's different styles on this really hot topic. But back to the comments. So Cecil Smith says, I was going to write out a long statement comparing the glaring differences between the Obama deportations versus Trump, but this article does sum it up quite a bit. Trump is seeing the absurdity of Stephen Miller's deportation goals. And I can't click that link. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can click this link real quick. And I'm going to skim over this just for the sake of time. And so this is what Cecil Smith says. This article is taken from Slate.com News and Politics 2025. And the article is, even Donald Trump is starting to see the absurdity of Stephen Miller's deportation targets. So like I said, I'm going to skim over this a little bit. You guys tell me what you think. If the past week has shown us anything, it's that President Donald Trump is desperate. He wants to deport 1 million immigrants from this country by the end of the first year in office, a level no modern U.S. president has ever hit. And maybe that's true, but like I said, I think it is fair to say Obama deported a lot of people. He deported millions and millions of people. And every president has. This is bipartisan. This isn't red versus blue, in my opinion. This is more of just presidents have been hot on deportation. And they always have been. They always have been. So it's like, I feel like when Trump does anything, people really, really raise hell about it. I think he could say, I love you all, and people would go crazy. I think people just really don't like him, or at least, okay, so Trump has really, really mastered the art of being really loved or hated. There isn't really a lot of people that are neutral to him. You either really like him, or you really fucking hate him. So, back to the article. He wants to deport 1 million immigrants by the end of this year in office, a level no modern U.S. president has ever hit. His administration has made it clear they're more willing to push the limits of the law and try to make it happen, whether it's through invoking obscure wartime laws, baselessly, revoking people's visas, or calling in the National Guard against civilian protesters. And I want to talk about that too in a minute. So, the acts of desperation are highly unlikely to result in 1 million deportations in 2025, but there's a bigger reality here. Trump's deportation targets were always extreme, absurd, and impossible to hit. Even as his administration ramps up attacks on civil society, it seems like Trump himself is beginning to realize this. It's necessary to understand some immigration basics to see why Trump's stated plans are almost comically doomed to failure. The Department of Homeland Security executes numerous different types of deportations, but those boil down to two main methods: removals and returns. Removals are deportations in the most common understanding of the term. An immigration judge or officer issues a formal order of removal against someone who is considered unlawfully present in the United States and returns them to a country of origin. Typically, these are people who enter the country illegally, have certain criminal convictions, or overstayed their visa. Returns, meanwhile, typically involve immigrants who are apprehended at the U.S.-Mexico border, turned away at an airport, or fall under the expedited removal. Returns at one point in time were the highest portion of deportations because they involve people who tried entering the U.S. land borders, which have historically had a much higher volume of activity than interior enforcement. It's not exactly clear how Trump is defining his 1 million deportations goal specifically, whether it includes returns, but it may not matter. Experts I spoke to, and like I said, this is a left-leaning article from Slate.com. Experts I spoke to believe the president is unlikely to achieve that number in 1 year's time, even if heavier volume of returns are included and if there's a significant increase in removals. So you can read the rest of that yourselves for the sake of time. I'm going to read some of these comments here on the live feed, and then I'm going to read some of the comments that are back on my Facebook page because it is a lot. First of all, hey Ruby, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. So Ruby has a very interesting and heated political corner podcast that she hosts. She's actually going to be on at 9, so thank you very much for tuning in while you had a little bit of time. And she says every president has, that's the problem. They never have a permanent solution. Right, I mean, that's what I was saying, earlier, is that basically every president has been really hot on, deportation. And my mom agrees with you that we just kind of need to enforce what we already have on the books. And Beauty Rest says, true O-N. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm not sure if that's a reference to QAnon or whatever. You might want to help me out there. Beauty Rest. But thank you for tuning in. Ruby says, Trump has been flippant on his base lately. It's truly infuriating. Okay, interesting, Ruby. Yeah, because Ruby follows political stuff even more than I do. So, yeah, I'd be interested in knowing a little bit more about that, because Ruby herself, is very conservative. Definitely pro-Trump. And so, yeah, I'd be interested to know what you mean by that. Hey, John, what's up? And, yeah, Ruby's got interesting emoji. Yeah, John, so if you were tuning in, I am talking about Barack Obama versus Trump's deportation styles and policies, and basically what's going on with a lot of the protests and riots right now. I'm from Florida. I'm here in Tampa. There have been a lot of protests in downtown, and also we have had some sheriffs down here with some pretty damn strong words about the protests turning into riots. And I want to talk about that too at length here in a bit, because that is a pretty hot topic, and I've got some strong views about that myself as somebody who has been in protest. And even as somebody leading conservatives, I have been to Black Lives Matter protests, and I've even supported them, and did support them in the beginning. I just feel like they started getting a little out of hand, and I feel like shit started getting a little bit crazy, and I started kind of distancing myself from it. So, back to the comments on my Facebook page, under that article, Cecil posted this topic about how he he basically thinks that it is comical, he thinks it's laughable, that Trump has these really, high deportation goals. Which, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, because Obama also had very serious deportation goals. And so I got some new comments here on the live feed. I'm going to read those in just a second. Let me read a few more of these comments. You guys can tell me what you think about them. So Lee Marsh says, it isn't that he is deporting people. It's the way he's doing it. There is no reason to be cruel. A 12-year-old girl was left alone crying on the streets when her parents were dragged. In another case, 2 unmarked cars rammed a car, used gas on the occupants, and then pointed guns. The occupants, the man they were looking for, his wife, and a toddler and an infant, gassed. Another case, a tan unmarked car rammed another car, only to find that they had the wrong people. When they left the scene and the intruder family in the street, this is inhumane. We treat animals better than this. It is the total lack of their constitutional right to due process. You might not like that they get to go to court, but that is the law, and Trump does not have the right to change that. Previous presidents have deported more people than Trump, but they did it legally. Okay, so I don't know enough to comment about that as to whether they did it legally or not. I really don't like talking about things that I don't know. But, I find it a little bit far-fetched, because I've been hearing that even people that, have citizenship, I guess due to their proximity and association with those who are illegals, have also been deported. I'm not going to say that that is true or not. I'm going to say that it has been something that I've looked up and haven't been able to verify yet. But, I have a question about this, and you guys tell me what you think. Do people who come here illegally have a right to due process? I mean, if you came to any country illegally and they ship your ass out of here, I mean, do they really have to have a due process for you? I mean, I know that's how we're supposed to do it, but I mean, you're breaking the law. You're not supposed to be here. You know the rules. You know you're going to be sent home. It's a tough situation because I think the conservatives really kind of view it as America first. They want to protect our homeland. We want to protect our jobs. I myself come from the working class, and I have seen a lot of illegals take my job. And I'm going to tell you the truth here. That pisses me off. As a hard-working American, I don't like that my job has been stolen by somebody illegal who's taking it for less pay and no benefits. Now, to be fair, some of that does fall on the employers. And I feel like the employers, you motherfuckers hiring illegal aliens and taking my job, I hope you lose your damn company. Because I am so tired of hardworking Americans trying to find work, and we can't find it because you guys are hiring immigrants for a third of the damn cost. And it's not fair to the immigrants either, because you're treating them like shit too. You're treating them like shit because you're giving them pennies, and you're also taking my goddamn job. Now, I come from the factories, and I come from the plants, and I come from the hard-working class. I manage a damn automotive shop. We're blue-collar as hell. And we don't like that shit. So, I'm going to get back to some of these comments, but I do have a lot of comments that are coming on the live feed. I want to thank you guys for commenting. I'm going to try to get through some of these because I got a lot. So, Ruby says, because the border was left open for 4 years, letting millions in. Talking about, she's responding to a viewer named Beauty Rest. She says, Beauty Rest says, I can't say publicly what I really feel. I have too many friends that protested. Okay, fair enough. And you know what? I want to say this to you liberals who are watching. I support your right to protest. Let me just say this right now and clear the air here. I fully support your American right to protest. You protest all you want. The thing that I don't like is the thing that I've seen for the last 4 years, and it happened to me when I started attending Black Lives Matter protests, that they would erupt into these violent protests where, you know, they're burning the town down, taking people out of their cars and injuring people, and sometimes seriously destroying public property. Now that shit I don't support. And I hope for anybody, and this is not a race thing, by the way, so don't even think it's a race thing. This has nothing to do with race. I support Kyle Rittenhouse. I was glad that he gunned down those damn criminals. And it's not a liberal thing, it's not anything, it's what they were criminals. They were destroying public property, and I know a lot of people think he shouldn't have been up there. But, you know, we have to take our country back. At least that's what I believe. I believe that we have to take our country back from a lot of the chaos and disorder. And I feel like that's why we see a lot of conservatives and police force resorting to such, you know, I guess you could say response to extremism. Maybe some of you liberals will call it extremism. You know, I don't wish to represent either side unfairly here. I mean, you know, you feel how you feel. I will try my best to respect that. That doesn't mean that I might, you know, necessarily agree with it, but I respect your views. So I'm going to get back to the comments here on the live feed because they're piling up. Thank you for commenting. I appreciate that. Comment all you want. Say anything you want. This is a show of free goddamn speech. This is America. All right, so I'm sick of what's going on right now. The country is so divided. It is. It's very divided. You know, sometimes I even fear civil war. I fear that there's going to be a civil war between liberals and conservatives at some point. And, you know, I kind of feel like liberals outnumber conservatives but I feel like conservatives are a little more formidable. You know, they're usually trained in weaponry, they're usually military and police force, and they have lots and lots of guns and weapons. Liberals are powerful by population. There is a lot of them, and they have a lot of passion, they've got a lot of fire for what they believe. But I do believe at the end of the day that they, although have a social advantage, are at a tactical disadvantage. So I do feel like if a war broke out, they would win eventually. I do feel like the conservatives would win eventually. But they would probably sustain pretty heavy losses because there are so many liberals. But getting back to the comments here, so Ruby says, every administration acts as if the last did something wrong. If we had real bipartisan American principles, it wouldn't matter which party the president is in, as long as they protected our country. Okay, that's a good point. No, she said, no due process whatsoever. Beauty Rest says, I'm not a citizen of this country, and I'm worried when I have to renew my residency card. I never worried about that. Lived here almost 30 years. Well, I can tell you this, Beauty Rest. You are in our country. I hope that you are able to obtain citizenship. You know, I do. Please go through the proper channels because they are really getting strict on this. So that's all I'm going to say there. You know, I don't have any personal vendetta against you. And you know, I'm going to get to this here in a minute, but let me just say this for now. If it's any consolation to the liberals that are watching the show, I am more for the criminals getting deported too. You know, my focus isn't really on regular people getting deported, but the criminals, you can get the fuck out of our country. That's how I feel. You can get the fuck out. You go take your fucking crime and your drugs or whatever back to whatever hellhole you came from. And no, it's not a race thing. I don't care where you're from. You know, if you come over here starting trouble, bringing more crime and more problems, you are not welcome. So back to the comments. Only citizens are entitled to due process. Why would you be worried, Beauty Rest? Agreed, DIASISS, they should be fined or shut down. It's already illegal. Yeah, Ruby, I definitely agree with that as a working class person who has had my job taken many times by immigrants, but by also corrupt businessmen who will hire them for pennies. That's very frustrating because, you know, there's a lot of job opportunities that I won't be able to get and have not been able to get because of that. And me and many hardworking Americans who are just trying to work and support a household. Rent is high, groceries are insane. Things are expensive. You know, regardless of what party you're in, I think we can all agree here, things are too fucking much. Because of this, okay, so Beauty Rest says, because of this dictator, they didn't admit to making mistakes. Ruby says, we don't have a dictator, Beauty Rest. Ruby says, also, we are a republic with a president. And Beauty Rest says, I'm not liberal or Democrat, just so you know. And Lady Jagger says, Kyle MF Rittenhouse, are you kidding me? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Well, I do. I wish we had more. I wish we had more Americans like him. She obviously strongly disagrees with that. So, John says, I smoke pot. What's that make me? Oh my God, that I guess that makes you a bipartisan. I don't know. So, Ruby says, a pothead, LOL. Yeah. So, Ruby says, my show is starting at 9. I wish you could join DIASISS. I'm going to go off. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Ruby. You're fantastic. I love your show. Can't wait to be on it soon. You fucking rock. Have a great show. Be sure to check out her. Hey, go ahead and post a link to your show or the name of it again so I can announce it if you're still over here. She says, I am so upset this past week with Trump. That's strong words coming from her because she is a very, very avid Trump supporter. So I need to do my research on that and find out what the fuck's going on. Thank you for contributing and commenting. And hey, good luck on your show tonight, Ruby. So, all right. So, back to the comments on my Facebook page. So, the last comment was Lee Marsh saying that it's basically the way Trump is deporting people. Lee thinks that, thinks that this is very cruel, the way that he's going about it. And it is, really pissing them off because they think that it's cruel. And so my friend Kong, he gets on here, he says, previous presidents deported legally. He says, I think he meant to say illegally. He said, okay, let me get this right. He said, you're okay with the president deporting people as long as the president is following the law and doing it legally. You know that people are being deported, are coming into this country illegally, right? And Lee says to Kong, if they are coming in illegally, then they need due process before a court before they return to their country. And so Kong says, okay, let me ask you something. If someone breaks into your home, what are you going to do? I thought that was funny because, it's true. It's like, I'm not following any due process if somebody breaks into my house illegally. You got to go. You out of here. Bye. By any means necessary. Get the hell out of my damn house. So, I'm kind of with him on that, And like I said, I don't want anyone to get hurt. Okay? I think it's a tough situation for everybody. And I think that the liberals, they don't like what they perceive to be inhumane about it. And I think the conservatives are like, well, we have to protect our homeland first. And we got to get them out of here and take care of our own people because our own people are struggling right now as it is. And so in that sense, as a working class individual, I kind of agree with that because it's like, hey, America first. Fuck the war in Israel. Fuck Ukraine. How about Detroit? Let's talk about that for a minute. Why don't we clean up fucking Detroit? Why don't we clean up Los Angeles? Why don't we do something about New York? We're over here meddling in other countries and war. What about us? Fuck other countries. That's how I feel. We need to take care of us. We can't afford rent. We can't afford mortgage. We can't afford groceries. We can't afford health care. You go to the damn hospital, you go to the emergency room, you come out of there a day later paying $20,000. I said this before and I'll say it again. If voting really worked, you'd have free health care. That's just my personal opinion. I think that, and this is probably one of the more liberal ideals that I have. I am for socialized, health care. And I know a lot of my conservative friends, oh, that won't work and it's failed in theory. Okay, fine. You know what? You know what also is failed in theory? How much fucking money it costs to go to the damn doctor. I haven't had a checkup in like 10 years. You know why? Because I can't afford to. Because every time I go, I've got to go see some specialists after that. Can't afford to do that. And they just nickel and dime you until you are broke. So yeah, I kind of also am my country first. We don't have time to worry about all these other foreign and dabble in all this foreign shit. Let's worry about us. Let's take care of home. Okay, so I got more comments. I'm going to read some of these very interesting opinions here. So I said to Lee Marsh, I said, because they were talking about the methods. And so here was my response. I said, to Lee, I said, yeah, okay, I get it, but other presidents also broke up families, deported women, children, like Obama, etc. They just appeared to be more friendly. Didn't mean they actually were. Some of the kindest, nicest people I know are assholes on the outside, but behind closed doors will do almost anything for you. I'm one of those people. People that know me, I'm an asshole. I'm a dickhead. I'm not friendly.
I'll do any fucking thing for you if you need it. And I'm a dick. You know, sometimes I can be very offensive. And I feel like a lot of genuine-hearted people are. You know, it's getting past, you know, how we appear. It's getting past the bad impression and lack of political correctness we have. We're not good with PR, we're not good with PC. But we keep it real. You know, we keep it real more than most people. I'll say that. So then Lee responds to me and says, the issue here is legal. According to the Constitution, every person on American soil has the right to go to court. They have a right to defend themselves. I don't know if other presidents broke up families, but family did know if they were detained. They could talk to them. And if deported, they had a choice to go with them to stay behind. Trump gives no choices, no chances, no goodbyes. The person doesn't get a chance to pack some clothes or whatever money they have saved. They just disappear, and many were born in the USA. So according to Trump, they are not Americans, but since they never lived anywhere else, they don't belong anywhere else. They don't belong in any country. That just isn't legal. So Cindy says, that is a personal experience, not a political statement. Okay. You know, Lee, I think that it would also be a kind thing to let people know if they have been deported. You know, to let their families know. I mean, I just think it would be a kind thing. You know, do they have to do it? No, they don't, because they're not here legally. But would it be a kind thing to do to say, hey, you know what, we deported your relative, they're here, or we have, you know, detained them because they are not here legally. So I get that. I get that. For all of you just tuning in, I am talking about the deportations and the protests and riots going on right now. Feel free to chime in, comment, say anything you want. This is free speech. This is my show, Tampa's Own. And there have been a lot of protests right here in Tampa. Thought about going to one just to see what it's about. I don't know how much productivity it would do, but just to see what the hype is about, because they're literally happening about a mile away from my house. So I live close to downtown. I live in what's called Ybor City, which is the historic part of Tampa. It is also a very haunted, witchy place, which is really cool. It's a lot like New Orleans, I guess you could say. So this is my hometown, this is my home neighborhood. So Lee responds saying, call the police. This is no different. Real immigration officials don't gas infants. And you know, Lee, I don't know if infants have been gassed, and I'm not going to say that they haven't been either. I will say that gassing children or infants is an especially cruel thing. And I don't care what party you're in, I think that that is a very, very, very cruel thing to do. And I would never condone that if I saw anything like that. I would definitely be very outspoken and say, hey, you know what? That's not right. That's not cool at all. So, this is Lee, real immigration officials gas infants or take away the parent and leave the child on the side of the road, alone and in tears. They make sure the child is safe, or this is basically saying how they're supposed to. They make sure the child is safe. How cruel can these people get? The illegals are not wild animals, they are human beings just like the rest of us. Due process, all capital letters, make sure you are getting the right people out without putting anyone else in serious risk. Trained officers know how to do this. The goons that are working for ICE are the criminals in this case, and probably a lot more. So my friend Kong, by the way, Kong is also an immigrant, and he's got some strong opinions here. So, you know, he immigrated from Vietnam years ago, him and his family. And I've been friends with Kong for 18 years now. And you know, I mean, he's a genuinely good dude, you know. So Kong says, just call the police. You're not going to try to defend your own home. Now, I agree not every single illegal immigrant are wild animals. Some are very dangerous and have caused deaths to American citizens. That's fact. That's fact, and that's one of the main things that makes me not like them here, is, you know, if they have fled their country because they were troublemakers there, and then they want to bring that shit over here, it's like, no. Like, if I could, I would personally send them back. And this is pertaining to the criminals. I'm talking about people who have just made society here also a wreck, like the hell that they came from, that they also made a wreck. I don't think that's cool at all. So yeah, Cohn goes on to say, you know, they have caused deaths to American citizens, you know, as far as the criminals go. Every illegal immigrant is a criminal though. And what he means is they're here illegally. So I understand your point of due process. If you care so much about doing the right thing for these people, then why don't you care about these people doing the right thing in the first place by coming to our country using the correct process? ICE are doing their jobs to protect the United States from illegals that the previous administration let in. You know, Obama did the same thing by taking parents and leaving the child on their own, right? Cindy Lynn says, ICE are doing their jobs. She says, that's hilarious. Lee says, I am disabled and a 73-year-old woman. What exactly do you think I could do? There is nothing here of value, so they really would have come to the wrong place. Conk says, how are they not? Are they trying to remove illegals? If they are, then yes, they are. Cindy says they are taking orders from demented Don, the con with no legalities applied. Only his distorted no due process delusion. Kong says, here we go with the due process stuff again. Why should we allow due process to people who came into this country illegally without going through the correct process? And I think that's an interesting point, honestly. Kong also says, we know they are here illegally because they don't have documents. How am I cruel for wanting the country I live in to be protected? So is every other country in the world cruel as well, since they don't allow illegals in their country? Also, my family are immigrants, and my parents came here the legal way. They had to go through a shit ton of paperwork, shelled out tons of money to become citizens. Why would I be okay with someone else coming to this country illegally that didn't have to go through the same thing my parents had to go through? And he's right. Like I said, they immigrated from Vietnam. Also, I don't like my tax dollars going towards illegals to give them a better lifestyle than most Americans who go to work daily. And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. You know, I've seen them get, you know, a lot of handouts. You know, I don't get handouts. I work my fucking ass off. You know, and maybe this isn't the fault of the illegals. Okay, fair enough. But I'm mad at the whole situation here. I work my ass off for the little bit of shit that I got. Why the hell don't I get some damn kickbacks? Where's my fucking welfare and food stamps and all that shit? And granted, maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree here, but it is frustrating nonetheless that they seem to get a lot of government assistance. Government would literally kick me out of their damn office. The DSS would throw, oh, nah, you make too much money. And I find that very infuriating. Because I don't have that much money. I'm going to get to y'all's comments here in a minute, so hang tight. For all of you just tuning in, Obama versus Trump's deportation styles and the protest and riots. Comment anything you want. Free speech is allowed here, even if I disagree with it. So Cindy says to Kong, the very first most important thing is that you don't address is the fact that under Trump's, I guess that's Trump's regime, these people are deported before it's known if they are here legally or not. Now, I've been hearing a lot about that from the liberal side. I would like some proof about that if you can show that. I have not been able to find anything. I understand that that's a very controversial article. or topic, and there probably wouldn't be a lot of articles on that. But if you guys could help me out and show me some kind of evidence, some kind of proof that Trump is deporting people who are here legally, I would be interested in seeing that. I'm a facts person, so I don't like to talk about things that I can't verify, which is why I leave a lot of this to subjective opinion and how I feel about things, because I think that the left and the right can both agree that the media can be full of shit and they lie to your ass a lot. So, you know, I would take everything they say with a grain of salt, if I take it at all. I tend to not really believe a fucking thing they say. So, Cindy says the very, first most important thing that you're not addressing, Kong, is under Trump's regime, these people are deported before it's known if they're here legally or not. That's why due process is so important. I especially don't understand why you would support such an illegal issue as deportation without due process after what you and your family know full well about the situation. I applaud you and your family for going about it the legal way. The problem with Trump is that he deports people without even knowing if they are here illegally or not. You wouldn't have wanted that for you or your family, right? I wouldn't want it for you either. Okay, so Cindy, yes, if you can show anything about that, or if anybody can that's on the liberal side here, I would be interested and open-minded enough to read it. So, Kong says, I understand where you're coming from. I agree with what you're saying. As long as people have documents, then they shouldn't be deported. And I agree with that too. But if they're here illegal, then get them out. I thought you meant every illegal should go through due process before getting deported, but if they're going to make sure if the people are illegal or not deporting, then yes, I agree. Lee says they get due process because it is in the Constitution. Try reading it sometime. If you don't want them to have due process, then change the Constitution. Kong says, don't think we'll understand each other, so I'm not going to go back and forth with you. I believe due process should only be for the people with documents, not the illegals. They broke the law by entering this country illegally, so why should we have to obey the law to remove them? Okay. So Lee says, to prove whether they are illegal or refugees, it is in the Constitution. If they are in the USA, the courts decide whether they stay or need to be deported. So Donnie says, Trump has already amended who gets deported. If you are here illegally and work for the hotel, farming, ranching, construction, and landscaping industries, you can stay as long as you obey the law. The reason people are making more of an uproar on Trump's deportations versus Obama's is because Obama did it quietly and discreetly versus Trump's crotch-grabbing, look at me, I'm bad routine. Trump had to amend his plan because it's primarily Republican administrations who started this mess because they wanted ultra-cheap, dependable labor to destroy the labor unions. That's an interesting point. Now, I will say this, even as somebody who leans conservative, I do support the unions because I have seen how corrupt company owners and bosses can be. And so I know this pisses a lot of people off, but yes, I do support unions. I think overall they are a greater force for good than bad. And if I had a union at my job, I will absolutely get involved with it because you have more equal rights and equal say, and you also get to protect your job not only from illegals who will steal it, because the employers will give it to them, but you also have more protection from the employers themselves. So that's how I feel about unions. So let me pause on the comments on Facebook, and now I'm going to go back to the comments on YouTube. So Ruby says, thanks, see you soon. People that say we don't need socialized health care, they all have health care. Right. I kind of agree with that. You know, it's expensive. It's very, very expensive for us common people. And honestly, us common people can't afford it. I mean, that's just the reality here. So, people say, right, are the people who all have health care. So John says, I can afford it, but I don't want to go to the doctor 75 years. Exercise, good food and moderation and water, good love and music. I don't need no doctors. Well, I hope that you continue a very long and healthy run, John. Peter Rest says, yes, John, stay away from doctors and medication and you will be all right. There's a lot, I mean, you know, I think there's a lot of truth about that until you get old. You know. All right, so I said in the comment section on Facebook, as with many things, Trump, you may not like his authentic style and delivery, but he is no different from other politicians who are great at being fake. But he is no different than other politicians who are great at being fake but still acting with absolute cruelty. I don't know if I wrote that right. Hold on one second, and then I'm going to read the comments under it because Cindy had a lot to say about that, and so did Cecil Smith. You know, basically just talking about his delivery doesn't necessarily mean that he's done more damage than anybody else. Politicians can be very likable, and they can also be very full of shit. I mean, think about some of the most corrupt business leaders that tell you a lot of things, make a lot of promises, and are trying to fuck you over simultaneously the whole time. That can be very frustrating because those are absolutely the people that you can't trust. After that, I posted an article on Facebook that says Obama administration kicks off family deportation raids, which he did. You know, whether you like that or not, that did happen. That's a part of American history. You know, and I'm not really pro-Obama or against Obama. I'm just saying that he was another president who was hot on deportation. You know, now the one good thing I will say about Obama is I think that was an amazing moment in American and Black history. And I think that a lot of us Americans, the day that he was elected president, had a little bit of pride in our country. Because for the first time, an African American, with even a foreign name, got to be president. And I think that is an example of true American fairness and how things should be. Because for me, it's not really a race thing as much as it is a class thing. And, you know, maybe a class thing and cultural thing sometimes. But, you know, for me, race has nothing to do with it. And like I said, I can't speak for every conservative. I cannot speak for every American. I cannot speak for every liberal. And I'm not going to. You know, I would just say that these are my opinions and this is the way that I feel. Until further knowledge and enlightenment, if that, you know, if that happens. So Cecil Smith, on my Facebook page, once I posted that article about Obama, you know, the Obama administration kicking off family deportation raids, he said, that article is about the deportations of people who had recently crossed the border illegally during his term, which was a focus of his policy after he listened to the people and lightened up on the removal process. The focus for deportations after the policy change were recent crossings and those who had criminal records or possibly presented a threat to public national security. The removal of families, women, etc. occurred during that specific time were only if they were new or posed a potential threat / criminal record. So my response was, yeah, but at the end of the day, aren't we kind of comparing oranges and oranges? I mean, the bottom line is it's the same end result. One just looks different from the other. Cecil says, sort of. And then he says, Obama listened to the public and changed his policies. Yesterday and all of last week basically showed that Trump is doing what he wants to do, regardless of what the people are wanting. He's also willing to go against the courts and bend laws to achieve it. I said to Cecil, okay, interesting. You know, great talking points for Tuesday's episode. So Cindy Lynn says, DIASISS authentic style and delivery. This is in response to my comment about, how I feel like he has an authentic style and delivery. She says, authentic style and delivery? There's not a damn thing authentic about him whatsoever. He is a perpetual lying felon con man. Everyone in NYC, New York City, has known this for decades. Okay? Well, that's your opinion. That's how you feel. And I don't know enough to really comment on that either way. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I know. I'm not going to sit here and act like I got all the answers. That's how you feel, that's how you feel. I will read your comment fairly and not misrepresent you. And I said on here in response to the article, I said, because Obama had no problem deporting women, children, etc., as the data proves. I said, there's a lot of interesting opinions here on both sides. Would you guys like to talk about this live on Tuesday? Donnie said, sure. I said, I feel like Trump at least keeps it real, where other politicians speak smooth and soften their speech, but are in reality far more brutal. Call it being an ESTP. And that's personality type. So Cindy says, what real? Or he keeps what real? He lies like he breathes. He just likes to try to talk tough like a bully, but as with bullies, he runs away and acts like the pathetic little coward he is, playing victim, big baby with a dirty diaper. He is no businessman either. He has had to declare bankruptcy numerous times. How does one even bankrupt 3 casinos? His legacy in New York City is widely known and abhorred. I could go on, but you get the picture. He is a convicted felon. You think he can be trusted? Not by me, never. Okay, Cindy. You know what? So my criticism to that and my skepticism to that is, okay, he's a convicted felon. Then how did he get to be president again? I mean, if this stuff isn't trumped up, huh?
Because people are dumbasses.
Yeah, but according to, our laws, isn't it true that if you are a felon, you cannot, hell, if I'm a felon, I couldn't even get a damn job at half the places. How the hell did he get to be president again, and he's a felon, supposedly? I'm genuinely curious about this.
You are so lucky I am sick right now.
Yeah, so she would like to comment and chime in on this. That would be Lady Jagger, Bianca, but she is sick with a sore throat. Same thing I've had actually, so my voice sounds a little crackly, that's why. I'm finally getting over it. Unfortunately, she's come down with it. And so she's having a hard time speaking right now. It's actually something that's been going around, so, yeah. But I don't get it. I don't get it. He's a felon, supposedly, then he shouldn't be president. I have so many questions about that. Like I said, I generally don't trust the media. I generally don't trust a lot of things that are, plastered on the news, both conservative and liberal. I think a lot of it is bullshit that probably has about 5% truth in it, and the rest of it is just a bunch of lies and exploitation, propaganda, whatever you want to call it. Basically bullshit. And so I try to actually look at both lines of media, because a lot of times I feel that, if you look at both sides of the media, I feel like somewhere in the middle of that is the truth. I had an INFJ friend, personality type wise, but INFJ friend years ago, actually I take that back, she was my second wife, hate her guts, can't stand her, she's just awful, cold, callous, not a lot of empathy. We divorced very quickly. But she said, she did say something that was true. She said, there's your side and there's my side. And somewhere in the middle of that is the truth. And I think that is very true a lot of the time. I'm not going to say that's always true, but I think that's generally a good, reliable phrase. So, let me get back to the comments. I'm actually going to read some of the comments on the live stream because I've got a few of you chiming in. So Beauty Rest says, yes, stay away from the doctors and medication, you'll be all right. Beauty Rest says, I like Cindy's comment. So Cindy on Facebook, you got a fan. Lady Jagger says, y'all are so lucky I'm sick right now. I'm trying not to throw things. Beauty Rest says, I hope you feel better, Lady Jagger. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, it's been rough. So, I'm not sure if I finished Cindy Lynn's comment. But yeah, she basically said, you know, his legacy in New York City is widely known and abhorred. I could go on and on and on. He's a convicted felon. You think he can be trusted? Not by me. Never. Each side is trying to prove the other side is evil, and that is not the truth. I kind of agree with that. So Claudia, who has been a longtime fan and follower, thank you, Claudia. It's good to see you chiming in. So Claudia says, your source is pretty old, 2016. And if you are not native or Mexican, you are the illegal immigrant. Those are their ancestral lands. They share them with you, not the other way around. The least people could do is let them exist in peace. Also, why are white illegal immigrants not being deported? So Lady Jagger thinks that is a very good point. So back to the comment. Yeah, she says also, why are white illegal immigrants not being deported? Has anyone taken into consideration that one of the reasons people have to flee their country, she has Cuba in parentheses, is due to actions the United States took many years ago? Probably talking about like the Bay of Pigs and stuff like that. And she says, people are being taken from their homes. People are having their citizenships revoked. I've had to talk to people at those concentration camps. It's heart-wrenching. No human should be illegal, specifically in a place that has a whole-ass symbol for liberty. What does it say written in that island? I'm assuming she's talking about Liberty Island. Send me the weary, not sure what that means, but only if they are white, right? Humanity should end for reals. I hope extinction comes soon. So, you know, I said to Claudia, that's a very interesting perspective. I'll be sharing my thoughts on this Tuesday on my show. And actually, I do want to share my thoughts about that. So I've got some questions and I've got some viewpoints here. So she says my source is pretty old, 2016, and if you're not native or Mexican, you are an illegal immigrant. Those are their ancestral lands. They share them with you, not the other way around. I agree with that when it comes to the Native Americans. I do. You know, this is their land. You know, period. I mean, I don't even know what else to say about that. This is their land. And I really don't know much else to say to that. The Mexicans. So according to history, from what I know, yes, they did fight several wars with America, and they lost, and they were moved down to more Central America, etc., etc. I don't know what to say about that. I don't. I really don't. I would love to chime in on that, but I don't know what to say. So she also says, Claudia also says, why are white illegal immigrants not being deported? Now, I don't know enough about that to say, you know, anything about that either way. For my liberal friends who are watching, is that true? Do you think that Trump is taking a harder stance on Mexican immigrants because they are not white and because they are Mexican than white immigrants? I'd like to know. I really would like to know. Do you think he is more hot on Mexican or non-white immigrants than he is on white immigrants? You know, and then my questions to that would be, are more Mexicans being deported because there are more Mexicans here? Or do you think, because I know a lot of liberals think that it's racially motivated. You know, I can say as a conservative, for me it's not racially motivated. I don't care who you are. If you're taking my job, and if a corrupt boss is allowing you to take my job, I hope that boss gets fired. And sorry, I want you to go through the due process because I want my fucking job, and I don't want you catching all the damn breaks that our government gives you when they won't give me a damn thing, and I work my ass off to hustle for the little bit of shit that I have. I have a problem with that. Yeah, I do have a problem with that. So I'm going to get to the riots, and I'm going to get to the protest here in a minute. I want to finish these comments, and then I'm going to get to the comments that are on the YouTube live feed. So back to the Facebook comments here. John Marine says, Claudia, I find it highly ironic when people here in the U.S. often throw the term illegal, the special audacity of saying it on stolen land. And then he sent a link. I don't have time to look at that link, John, although I will check it out. I've actually got one more comment, and then I am done with the Facebook comments for now. So Cindy Lynn finished the comment section by saying, one difference is that there is no due process with Trump. I despise him for the way he treats people of color, women, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer people. To me, he may as well put the white sheets on and declare the truth that he is a white supremacist. Clearly, he is a highly disturbed individual that doesn't even realize how disturbed he is. His followers must have the same lack of morality, humanity, and empathy. All they care about is the almighty dollar. It's as sick as the JWs. Okay, so ex-Jehovah's Witness, cool. That is actually how I started doing ex-Jehovah's Witness activism. Which I'm still into, by the way. So you can check out my Facebook group, Watching Watchtower. He is highly disturbed individual who doesn't even realize how disturbed he is. His followers must have the same lack of morality, humanity, and empathy. All they care about is the almighty dollar. It's as sick as the JWs who refuse to face reality. Fear is the main controlling factor in both. They turn a blind eye to the lies being told straight to their faces. Cognitive dissonance rules them. They would rather be willfully ignorant than face facts. JWs and MAGAs have a lot in common. You can give either one's proof in black and white, and they both just deny, deny, deny. It's a true red flag of cultism. In my honest opinion, or she says, in my honest opinion, yes, I have strong opinions and feelings about this, as I think anyone paying attention should. You know, I'm going to start off by saying thank you for that. And yes, I agree, people should have strong opinions about this. We agree on that. You know, Cindy, I could say as somebody who is very pro-Trump, I don't hate, you know, blacks, whites, immigrants, whatever. I don't hate the gays. I don't hate lesbians. I don't hate queer folks. I don't hate bisexuals or transgenders. I think that anybody being respectful and kind and a good, decent person, you know, who works hard, or at the very least tries their best to be a good, productive citizen of America, I think that they should be treated fairly. I think that the gays that serve in the military, and maybe even transgenders, queer folks that serve in the military, I feel like they deserve equal treatment. I feel like they deserve equal rights, equal benefits, and I don't feel like we should look at them any way different than anyone else as Americans. And maybe you're referring to MAGAs in general. I don't consider myself a MAGA supporter. I do like Trump, but that doesn't mean that I hate you. We may disagree sometimes. You know, we may have some serious differences, but I don't think that these people should be treated any differently than anybody else. You know, whether they're liberal, whether they're gay, white, black, transgender, I don't care. And you know, like I said, I can't speak for every conservative leaning person. I can't speak for every person. That's just how I feel. You know, and I've known a lot of other conservatives who feel similarly. And that's not to say that there aren't some hateful ones out there, guys. I think that there are hateful people on both sides. I think that there are hateful liberals. I feel like there are hateful libertarians. I feel like there are hateful conservatives. I feel like there are hateful Democrats. I feel like there are hateful Republicans. I feel like there are hateful white people, black people, Hispanic people. You know, sometimes people are just hateful and prejudiced, and that's unfortunate. That's the way that it is. I myself can even be biased sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I am. Sometimes because of the things that I've witnessed in the last 4 years, I can be very angry. I can be very biased. And I don't think I'm above anybody else who can fall into that. So I want to thank you all for your comments on my Facebook page. I'm now going to go over here to the YouTube live feed, and I'm going to be reading y'all's comments on here. For all of you that are just now tuning in, first off, thank you for tuning in. Betty, it is so good to finally see you on my damn show. It's about time. So Betty and everyone else, tonight's topic is Trump versus Obama's deporting policies and styles, and I'm going to be talking about the protest and the riots. So feel free to chime in, comment, free speech is allowed here, say any damn thing you want. This is America. So, here are the comments. So, Lady Jagger was talking about how she was sick. Beauty Rest says, hope you feel better. Lady Jagger responds and says, thanks, Beauty Rest. Plenty of beauty returned to you. And Lady Jagger says, colorism and colonialism, that's why, talking about what I was saying earlier about, basically, you know, why would Trump as a felon be able to be president again if he's not supposed to be, and if that was really legitimate? So I've got some questions about that. I'm not going to say either way whether it's true or false. I'm just going to say I find it very, very strange. Because I know convicted felons that can't even get a fucking job at McDonald's if they want to. I mean, goddamn, if you're a felon, you can't work anywhere. I mean, you are canceled out of the fucking job market for life. And I think that that's a fucked up thing too. Because I think even felons, if they have demonstrated good conduct, and if they are of good moral character, because people can change, then they deserve a goddamn second chance. You shouldn't fuck up at 17 years old, catch a felony, and be fucked from the job market until the day you die. Or not be able to get an apartment until the day you die. I think that that is wrong. Many of you might disagree with me, and that's your fucking right. This is America. But I think that that is wrong as hell. I think it's totally wrong, and it makes me very angry. So back to the comments. So Betty says, what's the topic? Yeah, but so basically talking about all this stuff. By the way, good to see you again. Hey Mom, how's it going? I read your comment earlier. Be sure to catch the recap. Your comment got a lot of likes, and I think it had a lot of great points. So Lady Jagger says, and people of Caribbean descent, particularly Haitians, have been sent back, even people who have been born here. Okay? Well, I don't know enough about that to comment either way. But thank you for sharing that. So my mom says, and while I'm here, I'll suck up benefits that their citizens paid for, and I will refuse to leave. Let's see how this goes. What other country would allow this? Yeah, fair point. I agree. Yeah, I feel like that too. I hate them catching the breaks that I can't get as a hardworking citizen, as a hardworking American. You know? And granted, maybe that's not the immigrants' fault, but I don't like it, and I think that that's corrupt. I don't think that they should be able to have benefits that me as an American am completely denied. That just makes me sick as a hardworking American. So, she also says, I like Trump's leadership, but I also think he is an asset, but I sleep well at night knowing he is running this joint. Okay. Oh no, ass, not acid. I mean, you know, he can be. He can be. You know, he's point blank. A lot of people don't like his delivery. You know, yeah. I mean, you know, you take up the grain of salt. I personally like a more point blank delivery because I feel like I can trust him. Some of you may differ. That's how I feel. I like people who just give it to me straight. Don't try to politically correct and tell me, yes, you know, we're doing this for Americans too, and we're gonna make all these promises. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna do it for the people. Don't bullshit me like that. Don't patronize my intelligence. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear I'm doing this because I want to. Hopefully it'll benefit you, but quite frankly, I don't give a damn. I think it needs to be done. Okay, you know what? At least I know I can trust you. At least I know you're not bullshitting me. That's how I feel. John says the system is stacked against the poor. I agree with that. I think it is stacked against the poor. You know, and sometimes I think it's even stacked against the middle class. And that's the biggest part that I have, you know. It's stacked against the middle class too. You're working your ass off trying to get a job out here. You can barely afford your benefits. They pay you just enough to be broke. You know? And that's frustrating. It's frustrating. You know, you got these big ass bills that, you know, minimum wage still sucks. Let's just be honest here, guys. Minimum wage is lower than $20. And $20 is fucking minimum wage now. If you don't like to hear that tough shit, minimum wage, 40 hours a week, or, you know, 40 hours a week, $20, that's minimum wage. You can't make money off of that. You can't save a lot of money off of that. You can't buy a lot of things off that. Your car note is going to be $500 or more after insurance, you know, full coverage insurance. Rent has gone way up. I mean, let's just be honest here, people. Groceries have gone way up. I went to the grocery store the other day. I didn't even buy that much stuff. I mean, realistically, I probably got a 2-week supply of food. $152, I want to say $152, $155. And that was using a rewards card to get some discounts on stuff. It's expensive out here, guys. One disaster from broke. Yes, John. Working poor, yes. So my mom Brenda says, even the middle class is one paycheck from poverty. Yes, you are absolutely right. And I think liberal or conservative, we can all agree, we're not making enough money. Man, we're not. Bosses are acting like they can't afford to pay us. They don't want to hire more people and hire help. Their work is at $20 an hour, 40 hours a week. Well, that's $800, but then after taxes, you know, then you got your rent, you know. I mean, come on. It's expensive at the end of the month. You're broke. You got a little bit of change. Julius, my main man. Lady Jagger says exactly, John. Yeah, I agree. I think we all agree with you. Free Luigi. Okay, yes, I agree with that. And I know that's going to piss some people off. I'm sorry. But I feel like he's a fucking American hero too, okay? If that makes me an asshole, I'm sorry. He was struggling. And he took out somebody who was a business guy. And this video might get banned for this shit. But I don't hate the guy. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't hate the guy. And that's not saying that I would do that. I'm just saying I can see why. And I think a lot of Americans can see why, he resorted to that. So I can't really talk about that too much on the show without getting yanked. So I can't really go into details about that. So my mom, Brenda, says I'm 61 and can't afford to retire. I'll be working until I'm dead in front of my computer. Yeah, and that is so sad. And it's true, and my mom works her ass off. She is one of the people who taught me good work ethic. And I really appreciate her for that. Her and my dad were both always hard workers, and they led by example. Lady Jagger says we need more plumbers and tradesmen. Yes, I agree with that too. I agree with that. Julia says, I see many retired people bored to death. Why not work till you drop? A lot of them do work till they're, or work because they're bored. That's true. I know a lot of retired people who are like, I had to come out of retirement. So for everybody just tuning in, this is President Obama versus President Trump's deportation style and methods, and also the protest and the riots and recent comments given by a Florida sheriff or chief of police. And as a Florida resident, I want to talk about that. And I'm going to get into that here in a minute. Nixon had some plumbers. Yes, he did, John. Yes, he did. Let's talk about the whole Watergate scandal. Oh, that's funny as hell. All right, so now here on the second half of the show, I want to get to the riots and the protest. And I want to start off, okay, wait a second. Trades are when the money is right now. I have a law degree, but I make my money as a general contractor. I am a tradesman, yeah. Yes, she absolutely is. She absolutely is. Mom is a jack of all trades. And like I said, her and my dad have taught me work ethic, and I really appreciate them for that, because these guys work their asses off. And have taught me how to work my ass off, and to try, and to fall down, and to get back up again, and still try, and to not make lame-ass excuses for why you can't work, like having the sniffles, or because you stayed out, you partied, and now you're not responsible enough to get your ass to work and keep your priorities in check. All of you who do that, I do not respect you. At least I do not respect your work ethic. I work with a lot of you guys every day. Oh, I'm sick. After Friday night when you were healthy as hell before, and half you guys do it once a week, about every Friday, Saturday night. Come on, guys. That's high school shit. Grow up. Be a man. Get to work. Take off your fucking sneakers, put on a pair of work boots, and get your ass to work, and stop making lame-ass excuses as to why you can't work hard. And I'm not just talking about trade jobs. I don't care what you do. If you work as a hairdresser, then you work your ass off too. And props to you for that. Anyways, I'm done with that rant. I want to talk about the protests that we've been seeing. And there's a few things I want to talk about. There's a few criticisms I have with it. And I want to talk about the riots and what this sheriff said. I'm actually going to be playing the clip about that. Hair splitters go crazy, by the way. Yeah. Work is work, and it doesn't have to be the work that I'm talking about. You don't have to put on boots and dig a ditch every day in construction to work. You can be a hard worker, and you can do all kinds of things. You can be a marketer. You could be an internet IT person. You could be a bar owner. It doesn't matter. The point is, get out there and give it your all and try. And that's what I'm talking about. And I think everybody that tries their best deserves props and deserves encouragement and deserves opportunities. And they're out there, guys. They're out there. Let's talk about these riots and these protests. First off, to all the liberals watching, I fully support your right to protest. I think you should protest if you disagree with the system. I absolutely do. You raise all the hell within reason that you want. If you think something is genuinely wrong and corrupt, I think that you have the right, and I think all of us Americans, conservative and liberal, or libertarian, should support your right to protest. Now, with that being said, I'm sorry, I'm looking at this comment. Lady Jagger says, you can be a professional wizard, be the best necromancer you can be. Homies, yeah. Sure, hey, fair enough. If it pays the bills, if it's lucrative, then hey, you know what? Then who am I to judge you? Who am I to judge that work? If it's not hurting you or anyone else, and it pays the bills, you know what? Hey, you make your fucking money. And I don't think anybody should criticize that. You know, even somebody working at McDonald's that works hard is still working hard and working a hard job. And I think they deserve applause for their effort across the board. But, you know, yeah, so the protest. I support your right to protest. Even liberals, I support your right to protest. Protest, if you see something wrong, say something. If you see something, say something, right? I may not agree with you, but I support your right to protest, and I'm willing to hear out your perspective, and I think most open-minded people are. And that's bipartisan. You know, it doesn't matter if you're red, blue, green, whatever. Different perspectives can sometimes be the gateway to enlightenment. And that's just the truth sometimes. So a lot of people have been protesting the ICE raids. And a lot of the liberals have been protesting it because they think that it is cruel. They feel that, and they're saying, and they believe, and like I said, I can't verify any of this, so I'm just going to say they're saying this, and I'm going to paraphrase it. They're going to say, or they have been saying, that ICE is taking away children from their families. They're taking parents away from their children. They're deporting people illegally. They're deporting people who have visas here. They're deporting people who are citizens. And they're doing it in very brutal and cruel ways. Okay. I can say right now that if that is happening, I think that that is cruel. I think that that should not happen. I still haven't seen a lot of links or proof about this. But at any rate, they think it's wrong. And they're protesting it, and they have a right to protest. Now, what I don't agree with, liberal or conservative, is that if you are protesting, terrorizing the town, if you are standing out in the middle of the streets, and you are dragging people out of their cars and endangering their lives and endangering their families, I don't care what happens to you, and I don't care about your protest or what the message of your protest is. If you're endangering the lives of ordinary citizens because you're angry and you want to protest, that is not okay. That's honestly one of the things that made me stop supporting Black Lives Matter as far as the protests go. Now, that's not to say I don't think that Black Lives Matter. I do think that Black Lives Matter. I think that they have experienced a lot of social injustice more than other races. I do. I think that they have been the subject of a lot of prejudice and brutality right out of the gate and not given a lot of due process and fair chances that they deserve as Americans. And I think that that is wrong. I do think that that is wrong. But what I don't agree with was a lot of the things that I saw at the BLM protest when I wanted to support them, that eventually they would end up in riots. Now, granted, these seem to be started by a lot of the white liberals that were part of these groups, but nevertheless, that's what they ended up being. They ended up being riots that destroyed the city. You had people just trying to get to and from that were being yanked out of their cars, beaten, and sometimes even murdered. And I think that that is wrong. And so recently, a sheriff has come out here in Florida who pretty much laid down the fucking law. And I'm going to be honest. I support him and I agree with him. And you might find this incredibly brutal, but I find it incredibly necessary, in the times that we're living in. So I'm going to play this clip. And I'm going to see if I can grab the phone and I can show it to you. But nevertheless, I want you guys to watch this.
You're going to jail.
So this is a sheriff down here, basically in Florida, talking about what will happen to rioters. Now, mind you, he's not talking about protesters. And hopefully, what he said about that is true. That, this applies to rioters, not protesters. Because I support people's right and the American right to protest, regardless of whatever party you're in. But I want you to watch this clip, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think, and you guys are more than welcome to tell me what you think. So, check this out. Let's see if you can see it. There it is.
If you resist lawful orders, you're going to jail. Let me be very clear about that. If you block an intersection or a roadway in Brevard County, you are going to jail. If you flee arrest, you're going to go to jail tired because we are going to run you down and put you in jail. If you try to mob rule a car in Brevard County, gathering around it, refusing to let the driver leave, in our county, you're most likely going to get run over and dragged across the street. If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here. If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead.
Okay. Very, very, very strong words. And a lot of liberals think that that is extreme. I want to tell you what I feel. You know what I feel is extreme? I feel that it's extreme to terrorize the city and to riot and destroy buildings and burn them to the ground. And I think that it is brutal to yank people out of their cars and beat the hell out of them or kill them because they want to drive on a public road, on one of our public roads here, state roads, to get where they're going. I think that that's brutal. And I can tell you right now, as a gun-owning American, that if you try to stop me, especially here in the state of Florida, if I am trying to peacefully drive through your protest to get to where I am going, and I am not being aggressive towards you, and you try to attack me, I will use any force necessary to take you out and stop you from attacking me, my property, and my family. And I can tell you without a second's hesitation, I will not fail to act. And you're going to have to just ask yourself if that's worth it. Because I think us Americans are tired of that. And I think that's one of the things that has given the conservatives so much power right now. Because people are tired of that shit. And whatever party you want to be associated with, that is wrong. And that shit needs to stop. I also am a little bit confused. I've been seeing, and I'm going to get to the comments here in a minute because a lot of comments have popped up. Why are they waving Mexican flags? I mean, I just find it very ironic that there's a lot of protesters that are protesting ICE by holding up Mexican flags. It's like, well, your solution is right here. Oh, Mexico, Mexico, Mexico. Okay, well, great. I've got great news for you. And no, I'm not anti-Mexican. Not in the least. But I just find it very strange that so many protesters are holding up Mexican flags here in America that are here illegally, So you went through illegal, dangerous channels to get to our country, to turn around, to hold up a Mexican flag. Because you're anti-deportation. I don't get it. I don't understand that. What's up with that, man? Why are you doing this? What is the reason? I think Cardi B said that, right? What is the reason? Any of my liberal friends want to chime in on that? Don't bring Cardi into this? What, is she liberal?
Yes.
She probably is.
Yes, she is. She literally interviewed Biden during his time here.
She interviewed Biden.
She interviewed Biden. She's actually very into politics.
No shit, okay.
Yes.
Well, maybe she can chime in on the show.
She is a political geek. She's been in it since she was in school. Cardi's into politics. I shit you not, man. I shit you not. But don't bring her into this.
Okay. So Bianca says that Cardi is very, very passionate about politics as well. Well, she said something funny years ago. I always thought it was funny. I don't remember what the clip was about, but she was like, "What is the reason?" I think somebody was like harassing her with like some crazy shit. And she's like, "What is the reason?" It was funny as hell. But yeah, you know, I don't get that whole, you're waving a Mexican flag, but you don't want to go back to Mexico. I mean, it's like me breaking into McDonald's, holding up a McDonald's flag, and then being mad about getting kicked out of McDonald's after I broke into it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Make it make sense, man. All right, so if any of you liberal friends want to chime in the last few minutes that we have, we got about 25 minutes left. Oh, this is so crazy. Might have to go into overtime. I don't know about that. I was just kidding about that overtime thing. But anyways, I got a shitload of comments. I'm going to read them. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for chiming in. Tonight's topic, Obama versus Trump's administration styles and policies, and the riots and protesters, and what American sheriffs are doing about them, and how you feel about it. So, back to the comments. You can be a professional wizard. Okay, right. Be the best necromancer. Send me the app, Julius. Because Julius said, most interesting job I ever heard of. Penis harvester. No joke. Very few are so. Oh my God. Eat citrus so you don't turn green. That's scurvy, friends. What in the fuck is going on in the comment section, guys?
You were talking about people being like red, yellow, green, whatever the fuck. That's what happens.
Oh my
Don't
God.
be green. Have your citrus. Florida. I'm done now.
All right, guys, so there you have it. Don't be green. Be Florida citrus. That's catchy, actually. I like that. Okay, so send me the app, Julius. LOL. Lady Jagger. That's what my mom said. So I'm chillin' says, can you tell us what happened with the guys at the round table? Not in this episode, but that is a very long, complicated story. Yes, I am no longer associated at all with the people at the round table. And I'm not even sure that they themselves are even associated with each other anymore. And it was a very controversial thing. I feel like we were derailed, and I feel like there were a lot of interesting things that happened surrounding that. A lot of people actually want to know about that because it was very successful. That is actually how I started. Lady Jagger says, listen, a stream of income is a stream of income. Yes, I agree with that. Yes, it is. Brenda Ayala says, no due process equals American Indians. Yes, I agree with that too. I do. Lady Jagger says, rioters are opportunists, not protesters. Yes, I agree with that too. That is very true. There's a big difference. I don't like rioters on either side. Fuck rioters, whether they're conservatives or liberals. I don't care. That's not cool. You don't deserve to, you don't get to destroy public property just because you're mad, or injure innocent bystanders because you're mad. That is not the American way. And that is not cool. Brenda Yell says, yes, Lady Jagger. Lady Jagger says, that sheriff clip is chilling. These cops are eager to kill. They're looking for any justification. Okay, I can see why you feel that way. I do. She's actually over in the other room. Lady Jagger is Bianca. Oh, yeah, I mean, I can see why you'd feel that way. I get it. But, I mean, you know, I feel like desperate times sometimes call for desperate measures. Rioters have caused a lot of mishap and deaths, you know, in the last 5 years. And that's been terrible. And I hope that that is not an excuse for police brutality, because that is not the point of police. The point of police is to protect and serve all citizens. You know, everyone, liberals and conservatives, whites and blacks, as long as you're not rioting. You know, but I will say this for the rioters: if you are rioting, I don't care what happens to you. And if you attack me, I will defend myself by any means necessary. And I do not think I care about your cause at that point, or you, because I do not. I will take you out any way that I fucking can. And that is my American right. That is my American birthright to do so. And so for you people who want to riot, my message to you would be, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Just don't. Protest. Protest. Okay, granted. Protest. But don't riot. Don't riot. And when I say riot, I mean harm innocent people, drag people out of their cars, stop people from crossing streets. Don't do that. Please don't do that. I can't tell you what to do, but my humble admonition to you would be, please don't do that. I'm not even saying it in a mean or threatening way. I'm saying, please don't do that. There's another way. So, yeah, John says graveyard dead. Yeah, you're damn right. Graveyard dead for the rioters. They have been referring to that at times as peace officers. Lady Jagger says they're a bunch of rotten apples. John says, I get it. Julius, the architect, says, you ran me over. Sounds more dramatic in court that you stood in front of my car. Oh, that Julius, man. I'm chillin' says, I'm Mexican and I'm for the Senbex. Yeah. I mean, you know, even I think a lot of the Mexican Americans, you know, they want this to stop. You know, and I don't think it's just a Mexican thing. As for deportation of Mexicans only and primarily, I don't know about that. I can tell you that as somebody who is kind of for the deportations, but kind of hates the way that it might be happening, you know, I don't know if there's any other way it could be done. And I don't think that it should be just limited to Mexicans either. You know, I think if you're here illegally, don't steal my jobs, don't steal my benefits. Government, stop giving them so many breaks and, you know, kickbacks or whatever you're giving them. And, you know, bosses, stop hiring them instead of hiring me, a hardworking American, and my friends who are hardworking Americans who want to work. And having us have to cut down on our pay, job, and benefits, go to part-time just to get a damn job. I mean, that fucking sucks. It does. That fucking sucks. As a hardworking American, I can tell you that fucking sucks. So, Brenda Ayala says, Julius, if I am in danger, you are hitting my windows and threatening my safety. I'm getting the hell out of there by any means necessary. Yeah, that's reasonable. You know, if you yank me out of my car and start kicking against my car and smashing my windows, I don't know if you want to kill me or not. I don't know what the hell you're going to do. And neither does anyone else. So yeah, don't be mad if some of you guys die in the process of that. Stop rioting. And for God's sake, stop looting too. Unless you're starving to death, you know, or desperate, stop looting just to loot. That's the shit. That's the reason we're in this mix in the first place, guys. You know, that's the reason that we're here. That's the reason that I think it's gotten to this level. You know, it's just enough is enough. That's how I feel anyway. I feel like enough is enough. John says, good show tonight. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's very important. I think it was very important to talk about. You know, that's why I posted on my Facebook page the other night when I did bring this article up. Damn, there's a lot of great comments here. I think I'm going to bring this to my show. So, yeah, John says, don't worry about the round table. You know, I tried to not, John. It was definitely disappointing. I definitely did not want it to end, but you know what? I was not in sole control of that show. I would like to do another show where we're talking about XJW stuff too, by the way. I would also like to lead peaceful protest against the Jehovah's Witnesses, mainly the governing body also. I think that they're corrupt, and I think the Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult, and I feel like they need to be stopped. So, yeah. So I don't have a whole lot more to say except for, you know, I can see why the protesters feel the way that they feel, and I can see why the anti-protesters who are protesting the protesters feel the way that they feel. And I feel like, dare I say, somewhere in the middle of that is the truth. But I think that there are reasonable points on both sides. And sometimes I even feel like there may be some unreasonable points on both sides. So John says, what about migrant farm work? Are they here legally? And how do you check? It's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, it seems like, you know, if we're being honest here, it seems like a lot of people don't mind the immigrants being here when they are working for $5 an hour in a hot field all day. When they are doing a lot of the jobs that maybe Americans may shy away from with a lot of zeal because it's the only opportunity that they have. You know what? I guess for those hardworking non-citizens, I hope you get your citizenship. I hope you go through the proper channels because you work your ass off. And I think that there is something to be said for anybody who works hard. It's just, let's go through the proper channels on that. You know, let's get you here. Get my grapes down to the giant eagle. I get my grapes down to the giant eagle. Not sure what that is, but yeah, I mean, it is true. A lot of farmers are illegal immigrants. It's true. I have known many of them that are here illegally. And we seem to turn a blind eye to that because they're doing a lot of jobs. Maybe I should slow down on vaping, especially sick. It's making me lose my voice even more. I'm going to grab something to drink real quick. Hang tight. By the way, feel free to comment. I got about 11 more minutes. So, John says they do nothing constructive about it at our wonderful Congress. Yes, at our wonderful Congress. Kind of agree with that one, John. Just past the BCK. The back, past the what? What is that? Let me know what that is. Also, hold on one second, guys. I just passed the buck, yeah. Hold on one second, guys. I drink a lot of tea and I have to use the bathroom and relieve myself. Give me about 1 minute. Okay, a few more. Yeah, I know. My mom says stop vaping. I know, Mom. They're addictive as hell. I swear they're more addictive than cigarettes.
Call me mommy because I say stop vaping too.
Yes, I know. God, how? All right, so a few minutes left. I'm going to read these comments. Julius, the architect, says, I am a first-generation American. My grandparents and my parents spent 5 years in refugee camps before getting the golden ticket, I'm assuming, to the USA. My father enlisted in the Army as a thank you to the country. Awesome. Awesome. He says, never would they have ever have considered rioting against the country that gave a new start. That's a good point. That's a good point. Why riot in a country that you're trying to have opportunity in? Also, if in fact that is happening. There's a lot of opportunity here. And if you go through the proper channels, you can come here. And I think there's some countries where you can't have citizenship. It's not a guarantee that they'll even give you citizenship. Like, I could be wrong here, but I think Japan, they don't have to let you in. There isn't any kind of thing saying, oh, we're going to give you citizenship because you applied for it. No, they may still be like, nope. They don't have to. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Julius. Yeah, John gave that a thumbs up. And my mom, yeah, right on, Julius. Don't bite the hand that's trying to feed you. I agree with that. Let me see if there's any new comments on Facebook before I chime out. Nope. I'm not seeing anything. Oh, wait. No country has to let you in, actually. Yeah, that's right. That's true. They don't. So, yeah, I mean, maybe in some cases a little more respect. I agree with that. If I came into a country illegally, I think my attitude would be more like, please let me in. What do I need to do? Rather than, fuck you and give me all your benefits. I don't like that. I as an American, would take personal offense to that. I really would. If you do that around me, I will be offended at you. All right. Well, guys, if there are no further comments, and I don't see any popping up, I think we can wrap it up here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. It's about that time anyway. I want to thank everyone for chiming in. I will be doing this every week. This is Tampa's Own. I'll be going live every week with a topic. You guys are more than welcome to chime in on the live comments, and I will be reading them in real time as they happen. So definitely say whatever you want. Free speech is allowed on this channel. I encourage all opinions, even those I do not agree with, because this is America. So, thank you all for chiming in. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. It's been a great episode. Be sure to catch the recap. This episode has been Barack Obama versus Trump's deportation styles and policies. And also the protest and the riots. And how you guys feel about them and how I feel about them. And thank you. Yes, thank you. My mom says good show. So, all right, I'm going to be signing off. You guys have a great night. If you do protest, that is your American right, and I fully support it. My only advice would be, please don't riot. Please don't riot. Protest all you want. Make the statement you believe you should make as an American. But let's try to not riot and endanger people's lives and destroy people's public property, destroy their cars, yank them out of their cars in the process. So, it's been a good episode. Again, I want to thank everybody for chiming in and for coming. John says bye. Thanks everybody, DIASISS. Thank you, John, for chiming in. And I will see you guys next week.